All the latest headlines for you now this Tuesday at lunchtime with the ITV News.
The Princess of Wales publicly reveals the hospital who treated her for cancer as she visits to give thanks. Following her diagnosis last year, Catherine began preventative chemotherapy but never revealed where. But she returned to the Royal Marsden Hospital today to thank the medical team who was with her during that treatment. Also this lunchtime, as life-threatening winds pick up pace, Southern California braces itself for what may come. So many drones, inmates compare it to an airport. The national security threat of gangs flying drugs and weapons into prisons. After 15 months of fighting and tens of thousands dead, a Gaza ceasefire deal is said to be as close as possible. And
well, too good. Catching the line. And Emma Raducanu has managed her way into the second round of the Australian Open.
It was far from a perfect match, but she did it. Emma Raducanu and a record-breaking number of Brits are through to the next round of the Australian Open.
This is ITV News with Charlene White.
Good afternoon. The Princess of Wales has made a return to the hospital where she was treated for cancer. Where she was having treatment hadn't been previously revealed, but today Kate personally thanked staff at the Royal Marsden in London for her care. She spoke to patients this lunchtime about her own chemotherapy as it was announced that she and Prince William were becoming patrons of the NHS Trust. With the latest, here's our Royal Editor, Chris Shipp.
It was, we are told, a poignant moment for the Princess of Wales as she returned this morning to the hospital where, over many months, she underwent her treatment for cancer. It's been revealed it happened here at the Royal Marsden in London as Kate went back inside this morning to thank staff for the care they gave her and to meet patients for whom cancer is still very much a reality. Images from inside the hospital released within the last hour show Kate talking to and embracing those who are still on their own cancer journeys. This was a moment of reflection for the Princess after a very turbulent year. The Princess announced in a video message in March that she was being treated for cancer.
The tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I'm now in the early stages of that treatment.
She was absent from public duties for most of the year, but released this family video in September to announce her chemotherapy had ended.
I cannot tell you what a relief it is to have finally completed my chemotherapy treatment. The last 9 months have been incredibly tough for us as a family.
They were months Prince William recently described as brutal. During her visit today, it was announced Kate has become a joint royal patron of this leading cancer hospital, alongside her husband William, who has the role already. But beyond any official title, this was above all about the Princess bonding with other patients undergoing their own treatments for cancer. Kate is still on a phased return to public-facing duties, but none could mean much more to her than this one.
Now, Chris, this was Kate's first solo engagement for a year, wasn't it? So how significant is it that she chose to do this one on her own?
Well, I mean, look, I think very significant. If you think back to a moment last year when the King, when he went to a hospital for the very first visit when he returned to public duties, that also felt similarly significant because you've got here two very senior royals now with that kind of connection with cancer patients they couldn't possibly have had before, for example. Now, these pictures have only just been coming in the last hour. We've got some more here to show you of Kate at the Royal Marsden today, talking to those, you know, at the moment undergoing their treatment. And clearly this is something that Kate was going through for many months of last year. And, you know, William called it brutal. It was a really difficult year for the family. Doing this on her own, I think, is significant. Yes, she is a joint patron now of this, you know, world-leading cancer hospital with her husband. But this, we are told, was about Kate reflecting on her own journey. It's been a very difficult journey over the last year or so. And this is one she wanted to do on her own. She wanted to meet the patients, and I think, you know, the pictures are indeed very moving.
Yeah, they are. Chris, thanks very much for that. OK, let's turn to the continuing devastation in California now, where wildfires have also sprung up in districts around Los Angeles. It's not clear if they are linked to the city's main fires, but President Biden insists the federal government stands with those affected by the flames. More now from our reporter, Olivia Guthrie.
As California enters its second week of the worst wildfires in its history, red flag warnings come into effect today. Officials saying close to hurricane-force winds could be bringing more explosive fire growth. There is no sign of an end to this disaster, even as authorities begin trying to count those who've died and account for those still missing.
At this time, we have 26 people reported missing. 17 of those have been found safe. Of the 9 remaining, 2 have most likely been found deceased, but we have yet to be able to positively identify those individuals.
100,000 residents remain under evacuation orders, looters taking advantage of the empty homes. Thousands of firefighters continue to battle 3 blazes, the largest of which, the Palisades fire, has already destroyed 23,000 acres and is still only 14% contained. Outgoing President Biden has committed the government to footing the bill for fighting the fires and for the next 6 months of rebuilding.
It's going to cost tens of billions of dollars to get Los Angeles back to where it was. So we're going to need Congress to step up to provide funding to get this done. And we're going to get that done, God willing.
Smaller wildfires are also now burning in neighbouring San Diego and Ventura County. Efforts to contain those blazes from the air and the ground are having some success. But it's all adding pressure to an already overstretched fire service, threatening more homes and more lives. A burned California braced for more destruction. Olivia Guthrie, ITV News.
OK, let's get more from Michael Yoshida, who's a correspondent with CNN, who joins us now. And Michael, the big fear is about those powerful winds, isn't it? So what sort of situation are firefighters waking up to?
Hey, Charlene, good to be with you. We are in the northeast part of Los Angeles this morning. You can see all of that's left behind from one of those deadly fires. And as we now worry about those winds picking up as the day goes on, crews setting up around different parts of Los Angeles, trying to pre-position, be ready at this point, at least in this neighborhood. Thankfully, conditions appear relatively calm, but again, there's so much concern about what will happen as the day moves forward. It was about an hour away from here, just west, where in the overnight hours we saw another fire start up. Thankfully, firefighters able to quickly get a handle on that one, but it's just an example of all of the concern, this critical threat that's in the Los Angeles area during these dry conditions. Complicated further, obviously, by the return of these winds. Now, as we have that fire threat ongoing, we also have some of the cleanup starting. We see crews throughout the hours, 24/7, basically, working to try and clean up some of this debris, to clean up some of these power lines that we still have scattered across neighborhoods. The mayor of Los Angeles, I know you were talking about the federal response, well, the local response, they now have signed an order to try and speed up this process. But with so many structures, so many homes destroyed, the question is asked for some of these families, do they want to go through that lengthy process?
OK, Michael, thanks very much for that. Here, the Chief Inspector of Prisons has warned that drones present a threat to national security. Charlie Taylor's calling for urgent action on criminal gangs that he says are ferrying drugs and weapons into jails. He accuses authorities of ceding the airspace over high-security prisons. Our North of England reporter, Kelly Foran, is outside one for us in Manchester. Kelly, this is thought to be a growing problem, isn't it?
It really is, so much so that when I arrived I had a drive around this prison and there are signs all over the place with pictures of drones with a big red line through it saying no drones, but it appears that those signs are being ignored now. HMP Manchester, where we are, is a maximum security prison. Behind these walls there are terrorists, there are murderers, there are some of the most dangerous people in the country on the inside, and they're getting these deliveries from people on the outside using these drones. It's also happening at Long Lartin in Worcestershire, and they're getting deliveries of things from mobile phones to drugs and even knives.
It was this influx of drones that we were seeing into both jails in different ways, because prisoners at Manchester were getting drugs through windows, whilst at Long Lartin we were seeing packages delivered by drones which were disguised as things like rubbish bags. So these are sophisticated organised criminals who are managing to get some large quantities of contraband into prisons that are holding some of the riskiest men in the country.
And these are not isolated incidents. An inmate at a prison down the road in Lancashire described the skies above as being so busy it was like an airport. This is causing huge concern that violence and that drugs will be rife in what is an already very dangerous setting.
Kelly, thanks very much. The search for two sisters who went missing in Aberdeen has entered its second week. Eliza and Henrietta, both aged 32, were last seen on CCTV close to the River Dee early last Tuesday. Specialist teams are searching the water, but they say they remain open-minded about exactly what happened. And Chelsea striker Sam Kerr has appeared at Kingston Crown Court over racially aggravated harassment allegations. The footballer is accused of abusing a police officer in a row over a taxi fare in Twickenham last year. Kerr denies the charge at an earlier plea hearing. To the Middle East now, where a ceasefire deal for Gaza is now said to be very close. Talks resumed this morning aimed at getting Israel and Hamas officials to agree an end to the war. But mediators are warning against raising expectations too soon. Our correspondent, Rachel Younger, has joined us in the studio. So, Rachel, lots of caution. But it is a positive sign that at least they're in the same building at the same time.
Yeah, I do think that speaks volumes, because over the past 15 months, they very rarely have been. Now, what we understand from the Qatari Foreign Ministry, who are mediating these negotiations, is that both sides, the Israelis and Hamas, have now been handed the same draft agreement. They're not in the same room, but they are reading the same thing. And what we've been told by ITV sources close to Hamas is some of the details of what would essentially be a three-stage process. Now, the first 6-week stage of that process would see 33 of Israel's hostages being released from Gaza if things go to plan. Now, outside its parliament this morning, relatives have been gathering. As you can imagine, they are desperate to keep the pressure up on the Israeli government to accept this deal. With 94 hostages, not all of them still alive, still believed to be held in Gaza. It wouldn't be a quick process, with 3 hostages being released on the first day, and then subsequent releases would depend on the freeing of Palestinian prisoners being held by the Israelis and gradual Israeli troop withdrawals from Gaza. There would also be a surge of humanitarian aid into Gaza. We know from the footage that we see from there how desperate conditions are, tens of thousands dead. So you can see why so much hinges on what happens in Doha today.
So how close are we to getting this deal finished? And do we know who's really behind it?
Well, the phrase that we're hearing from the Qataris is that there is a special kind of optimism this time. But although there is hope, there is still plenty of caution, as their spokesman made clear this morning.
It is very important not to or raise the expectations to a level that doesn't link to what's happening on the ground right now. We do believe that we are at a developed stage. We do believe that we are at the final stages, but obviously until there is an announcement, there will be no announcement.
Well, the Qataris have been at pains to say that both the outgoing Biden administration and Donald Trump's team have been integral to the progress they've made. Notable that Trump's special envoy met with Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, at the weekend, and the Israeli press making it clear that they felt that was a much more direct exchange than usual. But whoever is behind it, however close they are now, no deal over the line yet.
OK. Rachel, thanks very much. Still to come in the lunchtime news. The letterbox-sized kit that could save your life. Hundreds of thousands more people will get theirs in the post from today. Plus, Raducanu and Bolter through the Brits through to the Australia Open second round. First, the Chancellor has been facing questions in the Commons this lunchtime about the ongoing turmoil in the markets. Rachel Reeves has just returned from a visit to China, but it's pressure on the economy back home that plagued the trip, with the government's cost of borrowing reaching levels not seen since 2008. Well, let's get the latest from our political correspondent, Shihab Khan, who's in Parliament for us, as you can see. So, Shihab, what have we heard?
Well, the moment is still ongoing. Rachel Reeves is still on her feet in the House of Commons. Initially, she was there to update and give a statement on her trip to China, where she was drumming up business for the UK. But she's come under significant criticism for being away from the UK at a time where there's been economic uncertainty, and in particular, a lot of grim news. The pound went down to the lowest it's been in 14 months, and government borrowing has gone up to the highest it's been since 2008. There's been a slight rally today, but it wasn't enough to save her from facing some quite difficult questions in the House of Commons slightly earlier.
The Chancellor, of course, ducked the difficult questions by jetting off to Beijing. I believe that in Labour circles they are calling it the Peking duck, Mr. Speaker.
I have been under no illusion about the scale that we face. After 14 years of stagnant economic growth, higher debt and economic uncertainty.
As you heard from the Chancellor there, she is still blaming the inheritance that she got from the previous government, but also some international factors. The fact that Donald Trump is soon to be in the White House, and what that could mean is something that she thinks is causing uncertainty. The Tories are blaming her budget. The difficult position she finds herself now is that she may need to cut spending or raise taxes, and today she's spoken about going further faster. It has mounted pressure on her position as Chancellor. There's been a lot of speculation that Keir Starmer may decide to get rid of her. For now, the Prime Minister is saying he has full confidence in his Chancellor.
Shihab, thank you. Next, more than 850,000 extra people in England will receive an at-home bowel cancer test as the screening age is lowered from 54 to 50. It's designed to detect the disease early before people experience symptoms. Well, Carrie Davis has joined us in the studio. Carrie, what more can you tell us about the changes?
Well, lowering the screening age to 50 will bring it in line in England, will bring England in line with what's already happening in Scotland and Wales. Anyone can be affected by bowel cancer, but more than 90% of cases are in the over 50s. And we've spoken to one man who says this screening test saved his life. His bowel cancer was diagnosed early because he did a test at home and he could have surgery to remove it entirely.
It's easy to do, it's quick to do, and hopefully it just gives people the peace of mind that they've got nothing to worry about. And that can be priceless anyway, not worrying about something. But even if the diagnosis comes back as mine did, finding cancer early is key to treatment and key to outcomes. And the earlier you find it, the more positive the outcomes will be.
Well, the changes follow relentless campaigning by Deborah James, who many people will remember. She died aged 40 in 2022. She documented her experience of bowel cancer online under the name Bowel Babe and led the calls for the screening age to be lowered. The kit that people will get sent is known as the Fecal Immunochemical Test, or FIT, and it checks for the presence of blood in a small stool sample. It's able to detect amounts that wouldn't be visible if you just had a quick look in your toilet bowl. It comes with easy-to-follow instructions and prepaid packaging so that you can send it back really easily. But it is important not to rely on these tests alone. Anyone experiencing symptoms should still see their GP straight away, whether they've had one of these tests or not.
OK, Carrie, thanks very much.
There are a few signs and symptoms that are key to look out for. So this can include blood in your poo. It can include a change in bowel habits. So that might be pooing more often, looser poo or constipation. And symptoms can also be more generalised. So it may be unexplained weight loss or feeling tired for no reason.
So if you're aged 50 or 52, you should get a kit by the end of March. If you're 51 or 53, it'll be after your next birthday. If you think you should have one and you don't get one, speak to your GP.
All right, thank you. Spain is planning new measures that could double the cost of buying a holiday home there. A 100% tax would be added to properties for any buyers from outside the EU, including Brits. It's intended to make housing more affordable for locals. Finally, this lunchtime, she may have racked up 15 double faults, joking that her serve had a mind of its own. But Emma Raducanu still triumphed in her first round Australian Open match, all without dropping a set. But she wasn't the only one. 5 other Brits are also through, as Sally Biddle reports.
That will do it.
Through to the second round of the Australian Open. It was a hard-fought match for Emma Raducanu, beating 26th seed Ekterina Alexandrova in the Melbourne sun. The British tennis star won in straight sets, but her serve proved a real challenge, with 15 double faults making it pretty hard going.
Honestly, I'm not sure what I changed in my serve today. I think it had a mind of its own, so I will be sure to reflect and look at that.
Twice it went to tiebreak and twice Raducanu triumphed. Her first match since November, and quite a return to a Grand Slam as a seeded player. The back injury that hampered her pre-season warm-up in Auckland now behind her.
I felt pretty fit out there, and right now I feel good as well in my body, and I think it's just a testament to the work I'm starting to do off the court.
Recent illness, though, did affect British men's number 2 Cameron Norrie, who crashed out to Italy's Matteo Berrettini.
Yeah, I haven't been able to prepare as well as I could. I've been pretty sick in Auckland and then coming here, so I've barely practiced. It was a bit unfortunate with the timing, and I definitely gave myself the best chance, but I hit the wall after like an hour and a bit, and I was not able to stay sharp on the court.
Exhausting match it must have been.
Much better, though, for British women's number 1 Katie Boulter. In a thrilling showdown against Rebecca Marino, the 28-year-old left it till the last ball to beat the Canadian 2-1. Punching the air in celebration as the 6th Brit to get through to the second round. Sally Biddle, ITV News.
Well, that's all from us for now. Mary will be here with the evening news at 6:30. The news where you are is next. But from everyone here on the Lunchtime News team, you have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.